I can remember when if I heard their parents were making 60 grand a year, that was a ton of money, back then. Now it's $100,000 a year is pretty decent.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a lot worse, that's for sure. But when it comes to buying a house, say your household income is $100,000 a year. All right. Can you get a decent house for that?
Well, it really depends where you live.
Back in the studio, we're talking about realty expert John Brodeen is back again. How you doing today, my friend?
Good. Yeah.
Good. You got any big plans for the weekend?
This weekend, I'm not sure. I'd probably just lay low because next weekend I'm going to Minneapolis with my buddy.
Okay.
I'm the best man in his wedding. And we got to pick up his tux, and I got to get a suit. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. The wedding is this weekend, or you're just going down to the cities to take care of that stuff? Okay. Is the wedding in Grand Forks?
No, it's in California, actually.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
When
Never
is that?
been there. Next May.
Oh, okay. Okay. Never been there. What part?
Sacramento.
Okay.
So,
okay. I used to live out in California, so I was wondering.
I'm looking forward to it because I've never.
It's a great place to visit.
He knows all the good spots to go.
Sure. You'll have fun.
Yeah.
You'll have fun.
I'm looking forward to it.
I can remember, it's funny because I can remember back in high school, and I'm old. I can remember when if I heard their parents were making 60 grand a year, that was a ton of money, back then. Now it's $100,000 a year is pretty decent.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a lot worse, that's for sure. But when it comes to buying a house, say your household income is $100,000 a year. All right. Can you get a decent house for that?
Well, it really depends where you live. In some places, you couldn't buy a shack.
Right.
You can afford.
Speaking of California, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But no. So like let's run through what the numbers look like on this because this is pretty interesting.
Okay.
If you're making $100 grand a year, household income, you're looking at about $82,000 per year after tax, something like that. Mm-hmm. So you're making $8,300 a month before tax, $6,833 a month after tax. Let's say for this example, you're putting 5% down, and let's say you don't have any other debt. So your car's paid off, you don't have student loans, you're in a good financial position with no debt, and this is going to be your first home. Rates have come down a little bit. I know I've talked about this topic in the past. Rates have come down a little bit. They're currently at about 5.5 on a 30-year fixed rate conventional loan. So let's first look at what the bank would pre-approve you for as a maximum purchase price or maximum loan amount or whatever. So the bank would pre-approve you. Yeah, this would be purchase price. Bank would pre-approve you for a max purchase price of $455,000. Payment would be $3,551 a month with taxes and insurance, right? Now, that is more than half of your after-tax monthly income. Mm-hmm. So if you were to spend that amount on a house, you'd probably be pretty house poor. You'd feel pretty house poor.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't have a whole lot of leftover money to play with. If you go with the rule of thumb where you're spending 25 to 30% of your after-tax pay on housing, you'd be looking at a payment of around $1,700 to $2,050 per month. This would, with this same example, with 5% down, 5.5% down, 5% down, 5.5% interest, you'd be looking at a house anywhere from $210,000 to $255,000, which that's slightly below the average sale price in Grand Forks. But you can still, in Grand Forks, get a pretty nice, comfortable home for this.
Sure.
And keep in mind, $100 grand a year that's above the median. I think the median income in Grand Forks is like in the mid 70s.
Yeah.
And maybe nationwide, it might be in the mid 80s. So you're still your household income is over the
sure.
You know,
and you know you don't have to go with the $455,000 home if you get the one between $210,000 and $255,000 or whatever. That's still going to give you a little bit of wiggle room. Maybe you want to do a little bit of work on it yourself. Maybe you want to do, maybe you want to add a room or knock a wall out or do something. But that gives you a little more play money too.
Yeah, it does. And it more importantly too, it's going to give you money that you can put away each month because you want to be putting away money for retirement, emergency fund. You want to make sure that you aren't so strapped for cash that every bit of your extra money after you pay for food and for, daycare and whatever else is going towards your mortgage. Because that's, even though you might be living in a nice house, that's going to kind of suck a little bit.
Well, absolutely. And especially in the last few years, if you look at, it gets me, these people that don't pay attention to things like your grocery bill.
Yeah.
Look at the receipt when you're done, what you're paying for gas, what you're paying for electricity, what you're paying for everything.
Yeah.
None of that stuff's going down. Well, okay, gas is going down now, but of course, because the election is coming up, that's why that's going to drop. But nothing else goes down. So you got to make up for it somehow. So, I mean, that's a tough one there.
And when you actually own property, inflation can be kind of a good thing for you because your assets are also going up in value as everything else is going up. The worst possible, like inflation is definitely the worst on middle-class people who are living paycheck to paycheck, who don't have, assets that they own.
Right.
If you own plenty, if you have a good retirement account, you've got a bunch of money in stocks, and you've got, a primary residence that you own, those things are going to be going up in value along with, even though your cost of living is going up in value.
Sure.
So it doesn't hurt those people quite as bad as it hurts the people who are paid paycheck to paycheck. But with interest rates still being higher than they were, this situation back in, let's say 2021, when interest rates were still quite low. It would have been a much different picture. You'd be able to comfortably afford a much more expensive house when interest rates were low. For some people, this could mean you save up more money for a down payment in order to get the type of house you want. Or for other people, you might be buying a house like this. You might stretch your budget just a little bit in hopes that you're going to refinance when rates do come down more. But that's a little bit more of a gamble. It really all depends on what your risk tolerance is like.
Sure. But. So if you're, you and the wife, say you're married, either between the both of you or one of you, as long as your medium household income is $100,000, and you don't owe a ton of money on everything else, should be no problem getting approved from a lender. Like you said, to get yourself a really nice house, but you don't want to overspend. You still want to be able to live.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some people might put a different priority on it. Maybe it's more important for them to have a nicer house.
Yeah.
So maybe they look in that upper 300s price point or mid 300s price point, and they know that they're going to be spending a higher percentage of their income on their house payment, but maybe they expect their income to go up quite a bit over the next number of years. Everybody has a different way that they look at it. Not that many people take this smart approach of spending well below their means on their home, but people who do oftentimes have their financial situation looking really good, even though they might not have the most impressive house and the most impressive car and stuff like that.
Right. Who's got the most toys,
I
know somebody like that's got all kinds of brand new toys and lives in just a crappy shack and complains about it all the time. And he's like, I'm going to have to quit renting and get a house. I'm going to buy a house. I'm like, well, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Now that you keep buying snowmobiles, motorcycles, and all that stuff, you're not going to get a house.
The value of all of his recreational vehicles will be higher than the value of his house one day.
Yeah, and the thing is there's a payment book for every one of those toys.
Yeah, that's rough.
And that's what's going to get you. So, when you think about it, a husband and wife, if they're both in the workforce, that's not unattainable by any means.
Here at least. There's going to be people on YouTube who are going to let me know in the comments what you guys think, where you live, and is this even possible to get a decent home for $210,000 to $255,000, or is it even possible to get a decent place for $455,000? Because I know there's cities where you might be able to buy a decent 1 or 2 bedroom condo for $455,000.
But also, John, on that same note, you could be asking the same question to a Californian, but up at 200, to 200,000, and say, what kind of a home can you get for 200,000? Because darn well, they're probably the average income is, I'm guessing, higher than it is around here. Maybe not.
I think in cities that have well, you know what? I don't know this for sure, but I'd be willing to guess that you're right. That in cities where the cost of living is much higher and real estate prices are much higher, I would be willing to guess the household median income is also higher than what ours is. I think ours is like $76,000 or something like that here in North Dakota. There's definitely places that have a higher median income. I mean, there's places in the country where if you're making $100,000 a year household income and you've got kids, you're practically like in poverty.
Right, exactly. When it comes time for daycare, things like that, I mean, It's crazy.
I was watching an interesting YouTube video the other day, and it was like people. Let's say you've got two couples that both make $100,000, and you've got one couple who has kids. They pay for daycare, and they bought their house with high interest rates post, say, 2023 or something like that.
Okay.
So their house payment's quite high because of the high interest rates. They they have to pay a lot of money in daycare. You've got another, so they're barely scraping by on $100,000 a year. You've got another couple that doesn't have any children. They don't have to pay for daycare. They bought their house in, say, like 2016. So their price was lower and their interest rate is probably low because they probably refinanced in 2020 or 2021. They're living great on $100,000 a year. Same could probably be said for somebody who lives in an expensive city versus somebody who lives in a less expensive Midwest city, where $100,000 goes a lot further in the Midwest than it does in a little bit nicer, a little bit ritzier big city or something.
I mean, I know people that have quit working because of the daycare situation, the cost of it. Also, I know a guy that put every single penny he had that he possibly could in his 401k just for, or flex. I mean, just to pay for daycare.
Yep.
That's all it was, because that flex money is not, there's no interest on it.
Yeah.
And so he was, every single penny he put into
pre-tax,
flex.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Everything put into, me, I was buying glasses and things I needed, health wise. And no, him is all going to daycare. Because of when you've got, 2-3 kids.
It is better to pay for it with pre-tax dollars than post-tax
Absolutely.
dollars.
Sure it is. Sure it is. So, all right. So if you're making $100,000 in the household, it shouldn't be an issue buying a house, but you still got to be careful.
Yeah.
Like we talked about on Wednesday when you were in here, be prepared.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a home buyer. Prepared home buyers have way more success.
Do your budget, get your savings up to where it needs to be. Make sure you've got a little bit of an emergency fund. Don't rush things. Make sure that you're not making an impulse decision to buy that $455,000 house when it's going to be more than 50% of your take-home income each month.
Do you find homeowners are impulse buyers, some of them?
Sometimes.
Yeah, and that could bite you in the butt.
I've seen the spectrum on both ends, though, where I've worked with someone for 4 years, and multiple times there's been the perfect house in their budget, and they have not been able to pull the trigger on it.
Okay.
And then they'll call me a year later and they'll see another house they're interested in. They can't pull the trigger on it. And this time it's more expensive. And then the year after that, same thing happens. So I have seen people who have blindly rushed into things, and I can try to slow them down a little bit and try to help the situation. I have seen people, occasionally make poor decisions where there's nothing I can do.
Right.
On the other side, it costs those other people who wait such a long time a lot of money too.
Right. You
can get bailed out by a good market, and you build equity through making your payments on time. And as long as you don't destroy the house, you can come out all right. I think the consequences for the people who keep renting and look at the market change over 10 years when they could have bought something for $50,000, $60,000 less 10 years ago. That hurts a lot more, in my opinion.
Wow. They don't call him a realty expert for nothing. John Brodeen, how do you get a hold of you, John?
Yeah, 701-213-5428 is my cell phone number. Check me out on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. I'm putting videos up all the time that are going to help you home buyers and sellers, or even if you just have a goal of saving up to buy your first home, I've got information out there that's going to help you.
All right. You have a safe trip down to the cities, my friend.
Yeah, thanks.
And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good.
All right. There you go. That's realty expert John Brodeen. And for the week, there's your Berkshire Hathaway bi-weekly podcast. From all of us at Berkshire Hathaway and Grand Forks Best Source, have yourself a great weekend.